Hi, it's Barb. Welcome to the Universe of Business and Life. Today I'm joined by coach and author, or as she says, reluctant author, Melissa Ford. This conversation is such a powerful one. Melissa shares how uncovering the invisible lens of an unconscious belief she had that I don't matter completely shifted her life, from her marriage to her work and ultimately to how she relates to herself. We talk about what happens when we live in concealment or managing our image or protecting ourselves versus the freedom and connection that comes when we're willing to reveal the truth, first to ourselves and then to others. What I love about Melissa's story is how real and how human it is. It's not about fixing or forcing change, but about noticing hidden conditioning that shapes our lives and discovering ways to open up to what's true beyond the thoughts, beyond the conditioning. I think you're really going to appreciate how honest she is. I think you're going to walk away from this conversation feeling a sense of that liberation for yourself. As always, I am so glad you're here. If you know anyone that would benefit from this conversation, please share it. And now let's dive in. Melissa, thank you so much for being here. I know just in the few minutes we've been chatting before hit record, am super excited for us to begin. I can't wait to have you share. And I'll just let the audience know that already I was getting wind of Melissa's willingness to share really personal, meaningful insights and shifts that have happened. And I'm going to start with the phrasing you said, Melissa. I might not have it exact, but like in a dramatic way, you are not the same person you were. And I'm wondering, let's start there. What do you mean by that? And welcome, by the way.
Well, thanks for having me, Barb. I'm really happy to be here. And, I've had my eye on you for a while through the professional training with George and Linda Pransky and
Yeah.
just people that I know who have worked with you. So I'm really excited to be here.
Well,
It's awesome.
likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah. If I had started listening to a podcast a year or even 2 years ago and I heard somebody profess I'm not the person I was, I would have thought, yeah, there'd been a lot of skepticism around that line. But for me, I've been a coach for the last 15 years. I'm a firm believer in getting coached as a coach. It's so important because who I am is what I bring to my coaching. And so, if there isn't a continual opening and a deeper understanding of my own life and how the world works and how reality gets created, I'm going to be hard pressed to really help somebody. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be projecting all my stuff onto them, thinking that I've got the answers, and I'm going to miss a level of connection and questioning that could lead to the possibility of somebody experiencing some level of transformation. So I'm fully committed to continuing to be coached in my own life. And I've had amazing people and amazing coaches who have mentored and coached me. So the moment that I'm talking about was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And at the time, and I still am, but at the time I was being coached by Claire Diamond, who's a coach out of the UK. I showed up as who I thought I really was, which was somebody who projected an image of really having it together and looking like there weren't a lot of mistakes that got made. I've heard you say similar things when
Yes,
you've
yeah.
talked with people. So there was just this, and there was an edge to me, but I thought that was part of my strength and my what people would want from me in some way. And I'm in this conversation, this coaching conversation. And I laugh. I must have been complaining about my husband, I think, in this conversation. And Claire says to me, "Oh, I see. You think you don't matter." And I don't know if you've experienced, Barb, when somebody says something, and as the kids would say, I was shook to my core. It was so true. I had never seen that before. I had never been told that before. And it was stunning to me. And I think I said something like, "What do you mean?" But she had hit it. Something that had been such a core fear, such a wound that the Melissa identity had built itself around and had nobody had ever told me. For me, one of the biggest gifts we can give our clients and prospective clients is to, as lovingly as we can, share something, say something that maybe they never heard before. Because in my world, I didn't think that's what was believed by me. In fact, I wasn't even conscious of it. It was a subconscious conditioning. I actually thought it was my husband who believed it. And so the people in my building who, didn't talk to me in the elevator, this huge projection around me and certain friends. And when I'd send a text and somebody wouldn't text back right away, I mean, it permeated everything in my life. But that lens was so invisible to me, the lens of I don't matter, that I was just functioning in this world trying to um, uh, control people's behavior so they'd be the way that I would want them to be, and they'd say what they were supposed to say, and they would compliment me, but not too much, but just a bit, the whole thing. And when I started to continually notice that this belief, I don't matter, was operating, my life started shifting. And it wasn't just the noticing of it, it was also the willingness to have the experience, the emotion, the sensation that came with it and stay in it. I had been avoiding almost my whole life having any feeling but feeling good.
Mm.
Oddly, humans have more emotions than that, I find out. But, I stayed in it and I continued to, as best I could, question the narratives that would show up, not as a way to change them, like, oh, I don't matter, but to see the truth and what was real about what was being believed, but doing it from more of a witnessing, observational space, not a Melissa identity in that illusion trying to control and shift it, because I had done that my entire life. So that's what shifted for me, is moving more and more out of the not mattering realm and more into this real space of unconditional love on more of a consistent basis. And it's coming through what I shared, having the experience, questioning what was going on, as well as just simply asking myself, what do I want? So that's it. And I'm happy to
Yeah,
answer
I
any
have. Oh,
questions.
I have questions. Absolutely. First of all, thank you for sharing that. And I think, I can hear that those invisible subconscious conditioning or fears or concerns that are there, and the power of somebody reflecting back to you in a neutral, loving space.
Mhm.
And then that, you know, landing and resonating and seeing the truth. Yes, I've been on the receiving end of those, and I'm always so grateful for them. And I also want to just highlight that, yeah, I love also that that's usually what happens when a conditioning or a thought or an old belief kind of comes to the surface. We then get to see all the layers or all the ways in which we've been playing out. So I really love what you were saying. Like, oh, yeah, so me not being worthy, I could see all of a sudden me overthinking if a text not coming back soon enough, me trying to be professional and good enough so that I'd be respected, like all those different motives and things and I can hear that at least in this moment, there was, uh, some neutrality or understanding with it, not a lot of judgment. Is that accurate?
From my coach of
You, from you as you were as you saw more and more.
well, I want to say yes and no. The yes was there were moments of that ability to have the neutrality, to have this witnessing space, but there were a lot of moments of deep shame and embarrassment. And I spent this sounds wild, I spent a lot of time crying. And I would also say there were moments of extreme resistance, because when the minds believed it to be this not mattering character, it also was going to fight to stay alive because it truly is believed to be me, but it isn't. So there would be a lot of, seeking and resisting going on. Relative to my husband, the behavior looked like asking for what I wanted, but not really. So it'd be things such as, listen, if you want to go to this event, but you don't have to. Or, hey, I'm going to do this weekend if you want to come along, but you don't have to. Like a lot of this, and not just for years, we're talking decades. I've been married a long time. So this was going on. There was a lot of seeking approval or appreciation in an underhanded way where, when people do that enough, after a while, you're just like, okay, fine. Yay, Melissa. It just, there was a lot of that trying to shore up this character that was running the show. And I didn't even know this was going on. So the story in my head was, this guy thinks I don't matter. And Brian, if you hear this interview, know how much you are loved. But this guy, he's not doing what he should. I don't matter. There were so much misunderstanding on my part. I didn't even really know who he was. He was just covered with this projection. So can I share this moment, like this real scene
Please.
of something? It was so
Yeah.
fascinating. After I was told this, you don't matter, and I started to notice some of these behaviors that were a byproduct of this subconscious belief about me, my coach said to me, well, look, I've got a test. Do you want to do this? And so since I pay people to coach me, I'm going to test out what they recommend, especially if it sounds horrific. So the recommendation was I could in one day go and get 10 no's. I could make a request because we could see my asking for something. I was hesitant. Like I wouldn't fully ask because I didn't even realize this at the time. But the thinking was that if I ask and I'm told no, that's more reconfirmation. I don't matter. So I'm going to stay away from that because that's just too darn scary. So I said, well, I'll agree to 5 no's because I work full time.
Yeah.
And typically I don't get a lot of no's in my work. So this will be easy. All I have to do is call up my husband and then I'll ask him for stuff and he'll tell me no. We're done. I could send over the email, mission accomplished, it's confirmed. Here we are. About 4:30 on this day that I'm going to start the test, I'm supposed to get 5 no's for a week every day. I call him up and he answers. And I know what I have to do. I have to just get a no. So this should be pretty easy because he'll just right off the gate, out of the gate, say no. So I ask for him to bring home some food from this really great sushi place next to where he works. His response is, that's too bad. I just got sushi bento boxes for me and the guys. He has employees who work for him. Now, the Melissa before would have been, oh, okay, well, that's okay. We can do it later. But I have to get a no. So I say, oh, that's great. I'd still like to get some food from Sen Sushi. Will you pick it up for me? There's this pause. And he says, yeah, I'll do that. But I want you to order it. My response is, because I'm going to win this, I'm going to get no's. I don't want to pick it. I don't want to order it. I want you to order it. Another pause. And then I say, do you have the phone number? Yes. Okay, what do you want? He says. So I order this stuff that I know it's pretty expensive. So that's not really a great thing. And in his estimation, it doesn't travel well. So he's writing this down. He said, okay, I'll do it. Can you get it here by 5 p.m.? It's now 4:30. Well, I was planning on staying at work until 5:30. Well, I hear that, but I'd like it at 5. Will you do that? Okay. And I said, okay, all right, well, that's great. I'll see you at 5. I finished the call. I'm like, what just happened?
That's amazing.
It is. I call him back because I've got to get a no. He picks up like on the first ring. What else can I get you? So I proceed. I don't have to get into all the details of it, but I make requests that are things that I know he would not want to do. They are things that are inconvenient, he doesn't like. He says yes to all of them. Okay, so that's that. What happens? He gets here before 5 o'clock. He's notoriously late. He gets here
Right.
and he walks in and he has these two bouquet of flowers that I asked for. He's got the sushi order and he's like, yeah, I remember you asked me for a measuring tape a couple of days ago and some toilet paper. I'm the queen of backups, so we have lots of
Yeah.
toilet paper. And I look at him and I just start crying. He's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Now, in that moment, and it took me a few other moments, Barb, to be able, over
Sure.
the course of the time, to see, to have this idea of me start to dissolve. But I saw, oh my gosh, I have been married for many decades to somebody who wants to say yes to my requests and I matter. And it's not even that. It's just like I've been living in this world that wasn't even real.
Wow. What a amazing story. And yeah, I'm curious, like, first of all, I just want to say, like, you beautifully kind of illustrated that, so much of how we're perceiving the world and what other people, their intentions and what they're up to and why they do what they do is through the lens of our own conditioned beliefs, our own insecurities, our own ideas. So, such a beautiful illustration of you sort of saying, oh, wait a minute, there's something that's been at play here. And I love the exercise that helps you kind of just look at it and then to really, what a gift to see that he in fact wants to give you what you want. I'm curious, like, what did you make of it? What did you make of that, as that moment or that journey of I matter and the illusion of, wow, I've lived in this premise and belief that I don't? How did it shift? Just by waking up to it?
Yeah.
How did it actually shift?
Well, what I was seeing, that this story that's been projected on him of he doesn't think that I matter and da 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 da, all this stuff, it was true. Like the relative world is solely comprised of conditioned beliefs that are projected and we don't know it. I mean, that's really what's going on. So for me, it really wasn't even a confirmation that I matter. It was a confirmation that I had been living in this so real reality for so long. And I had a bag, I can say a shit ton of resentment, because when that's believed, there's just this desperate need to try to feel better and somehow heal this wound or this idea, but it never can be, because until it's seen for what it is, which it's not you, it's an idea. Until that's seen, it's going to keep replicating itself. So my response really in that moment was, I can't unsee this thing. This is just too darn big. Okay. And it would still show up, and there would still be this reaction and this resentment, but I had developed enough of a commitment, a practice, a willingness really to stay in that discomfort and have the sensations that go with it, and then see something else. And I just kept doing that and doing that. And there's times where it didn't happen and I could hear words come out of my mouth and a little jab here and a this there. But it was just over time that it wasn't such a lens anymore. It wasn't the reality I was living in. And that was really a relief, because my entire life, pretty much married life, I was constantly trying to manage behaviors so I could manage how I felt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's very tiring.
It is exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thank you for that distinction. I think it's a good one, that what you woke up to was how your version of the world was being painted internally by you. And that at that in that example, there was a core belief kind of running underneath everything that was painting. It was the paintbrush. And so everything was seen through that lens or those glasses. And that's what you woke up to. And I think it's a really profound realization. Obviously, as you said, it's shown up that way in your life, but also to really, because you see the illusion then. You see something that just looks so real, all of a sudden we're like, oh, could I have been, I was painting this? That was just me? That's
Yeah,
not a truth out there in the
that's
world?
right. That's right. And I'll take it even further. And
Good.
this is where it can get, I hope I can express this. I wasn't even doing it. We hear people say things like it was done innocently or whatever. Really, it was done innocently, and I wasn't doing it. It was a way of operating. It was almost like a survival thing, and it was happening and it was coming through me. Now, this doesn't mean that I am giving up responsibility or accountability. It just means that I wasn't consciously doing these things. It's almost as if it was coming through me. And as a result of that, there's just a clearer understanding of what is actually happening because we are beyond these psychological concepts we have of ourselves, beyond we come before this lived experience that feels like Melissa. And so being able to see it from that observational witnessing space, there was it was just clean and clear. It wasn't as if now, because I painted it and I did it, now I've got to, go in there and try to make sure I don't do it again. And actually, that's just more of the same illusion. That's just more of the same, and nothing gets resolved there. It's just a reconfirmation, and some people would say a re traumatization of the same notion. And it just gets, you know, drilled into place. So I want to even say beyond that, it was just, wow, this is what's happening. And a lot of people might think that's me giving up responsibility. No, it's not. You see it. And that noticing is the beginning of it changing.
For sure. I know a mentor of mine, Elsie Spittle, used to say, notice and stop. Like the noticing is the wake up. Like that's the profound to notice. And then, yeah, my little self-helper then wants to take over the reins and be like, okay, well, how do I fix this then everywhere? How do I, and, so
What do I do
I,
with this?
yeah, yeah. So I can appreciate that also. What you're pointing to is that in a way, conditioning happens. It's a normal part of our human experience. And we don't consciously like sort and decide what I'm going to, it's a impact of environment and family and, schools and community and trauma, all that kind of stuff. But to see conditioning and what you just you're inviting us to really explore is you had a moment that was unpredicted, a wake up call, a pointing by a coach, right? A mentor. And in that, as soon as you woke up to it, as soon as you noticed it was the journey began, like you weren't then in charge of the journey, you weren't, but your consciousness around it would come to your aid is kind of maybe a way to say it. Like it would help us in the moments that we're in another pattern of it. That deeper understanding kind of does the heavy lifting and will come at some point and be like, hey, this might be one of those, this might be one of those things again, where you're tying your worth to something, it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I was told this. I was told, Melissa, when there's any moment of stress in your life, the subconscious conditioning's operating. It's not happening out there. And that's not to deny that there aren't things happening out in the world. There are. But I'm better equipped to arrive at choices about what I'm going to do when I can clearly see what is out there versus, the projection overlaid on everything. Now I'm really closer to dealing with what's happening out there. Um,
Yeah, and I think what would you share or say to someone that, like, "Hey, I know I have these patterns and it looks like I need to work on my self-worth, or it looks like I lack confidence and that's my problem." How would you respond to that?
Probably say something. It would again. It would depend on the person I'm speaking to and how long I've been connected to them. But it'd be something along the lines of, "I know it looks like that's what you need to work on, but we're actually not going to work on that." If And I might even say, "How long have you known this, and how long have you worked on your confidence and your low self-esteem?" Yeah, so we're not going to do that anymore. It's really not where your own evolution lies. That's just more of the same. So we're going to go somewhere else. So give me an example of a time where you feel like you lack confidence. And I'm just curious because now what I can do is I can start to hear their story. And the beauty of having gone through this myself, and then it's not just been with my husband, it's been with my adult children, it's been with being more social, it's been with being more in the world. The less there is of this Melissa to protect, the more I have this ability to be out there, which feels so good. So because of this experience, that was really the starting point for me. When I listen to somebody tell their story, uh, I hear where they're caught up. I hear where their minds are trying to safeguard and secure an idea of them. I can see all that going on. And I can have deep love and understanding for it, because not from oh, this is what you say, but from a deep understanding. Oh, me as well. Me too. So that's where I would start. And then because so much has been seen over here, the conversation's just different with that other individual. The Melissa before would have gone down the path of, let's work on your confidence,
Yeah, exactly.
you know?
Well, I'm curious, how has seeing, like, and now I'll speak to it out of the specific worth piece, but seeing conditioning at play and shaping how you are painting your life and your picture of thing. How has seeing that in such a deep way impacted your own way you move in your business or in your life?
I'm really glad you asked this. I want to share how it's impacted. I won't get into the story right away, but how it's impacted is that there is a greater ease with creating clients. There's a greater ease with being with people. There's a real connection with them. And it's just more natural. There's just a naturalness to me offering a plan of action to somebody and somebody saying yes or somebody saying no. It's just much more of a flow. And it wasn't because I decided I'm going to be in the flow. It was what I started to see that was behind my actions as a coach who was learning how to create clients and wanted to make money. When I finally saw what was driving that, the whole house of cards fell down. And then I started from that fresh place of, okay, what do I want? What am I going to do here?
So, can just to clarify, does that mean you saw like, oh, there's conditioning or idea or an identity here that's making creating clients look challenging? And
Yes.
then so once that deck of cards fell down, you
Yeah.
were just stepping into maybe new ideas or following through in a different way.
Yeah, I was definitely all of the resources that had been used to secure me were no longer being used for that. And when I say resources, I'm talking about focus and attention and intelligence and all of that. Creativity wasn't used to protect Melissa, it was used in actual client creation. So what had happened for me, you've interviewed the godfather of coaching. Steve Chandler, I am so eternally grateful to you.
I
I
love
found out about Steve 9-ish. Or no, I found out about him 14 years prior to that. But 14 years after, contacted the guy. So I get a hold of Steve and he and I start working together and he teaches me about creating clients through service. And I am hell bent on making money and proving I can be a professional coach and I'm full time and I'm going after it. And I was nonstop, you know, dog with bone for about 12 to 14 years. And I proved it every year, not every year right away, but made more money, made more, and it's that whole thing. When I make this amount of money, then but then there was another one and another one. So I had reached a annual income where I was like, wow, this is pretty incredible. But then there'd be the next year. And so in this work with Claire, we uncovered that this drive to prove that I could make money, what was really going on was that, and this was all subconscious as well, and it's so true. What was going on for me was that the logical thought was if I make money, then I will have a voice. And then when I have a voice, I can ask for what I want. And then when I ask for what I want, I'll finally matter. Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
When I saw that, when I really saw that, I was like, oh, wow, it's over there. It's in this business. It's this drive that's consumed me for over a decade plus. All good. I learned a lot. I took a lot of action. I served a lot of people, but wow. And when I saw that, I was at a place, Barb, where I could see it and I didn't continue to operate the way that I did. And it wasn't because I consciously decided I'm not going to do that. It just didn't make any more sense. So what occurred then was I watched the income go down. I never had any thinking like, oh my gosh, I've lost my mojo.
Yeah.
No, I just saw, wow, check this out. And so I watched it go down and I watched it felt like there was this inertia, but I just noticed it and I kind of did what I did. And I knew what I needed to do is if I wanted to have a new client. And I just sometimes did and sometimes I didn't. And then what happened was there was just this desire to connect with people or a past client or somebody came in because I just wanted to really love. And so I did. And I did it in the form of a coach in a coaching relationship. And there was a greater ease and there was a clearer scene and there was a flow because I wasn't so, like I said, the resources weren't trying to keep this Melissa intact. And then who doesn't? I mean, wow, isn't that fun? You get up and you get to love on people, and that's what it became. And then more of that, then there's always something to learn from a client because something gets projected over there, or there has to be a willingness to say something that I might be afraid to say, but am I going to do it? Because people have been loving enough to do that for me. So that's what happened with that. This all sounds, it may sound like magic or something, but really it's seeing what's really there without this
Yeah. Well,
concept.
I think it's like that point that when our energy, our focus, our creative intelligence, all of that isn't needing to protect ourselves from something or trying to control all the variables, that we just naturally then have more access to it to move in the direction of where our heart wants to go. And so I think that it's a really great question for people to maybe consider, like, how much of their creative bandwidth or their internal energy is going into perhaps trying to protect or control. I often think about it, about this sort of vigilance. I used to, I realized at one point, it's like I kind of always have one eye on myself going, all right, you doing it right? Could you be doing it better? What could you have said? How could you say that different? What do you need to say ahead of that? Like just, and I, like you, I wasn't really conscious of it, but when I became aware and saw it, it was like, oh my God, no wonder I'm tired, right? Like you said, no wonder. And how much energy goes into that. And it was like, yeah, could I move with less of me on my mind? And what might you discover? And part of it was that less of me on my mind. I realized I had more energy, I had more insight, or I had more connection. I was available to life in a very different way versus when I thought I had to be more vigilant with myself to get it all right, to, get the life I wanted. So I think that view is really, really powerful. And you're right. If we're not trying to control other people's perception or moods because we don't like what it feels like, to feel uncertain, or we don't like what it feels like to feel judged. Yeah, really the opposite side of the coin perhaps is, oh, can I get comfortable in the unknown? Can I get more and more comfortable knowing I have what it takes to handle it? I don't need to think through every possible way a conversation would go to try and get them to not get upset. I can handle their upset. Like we'll find our way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love what you said. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Melissa, so part of what you've seen, if just to come back to that, is you have more energy and more ability to use that creative intelligence in the direction of where your heart wants to go. Is there anything else that comes to mind when you think about how have you shifted in the way you move in your work and life as a result of what you're sharing?
It's so much more fun because all not all, there's still more, I'm sure, but many of the things I was afraid of don't even exist. So I do want to share another thing I've recently learned from my coach, Trevor Tembeck, and it comes from conscious leadership. It's the distinction of reveal versus conceal. I don't know if he shared this with you, Barb, but
I'd love to hear you share it.
so good. Reveal versus conceal, which means conceal was how I operated for a really long time. It was image control. It was image control here, controlling you over there, thinking I'm controlling you over there, controlling what you might think of me. Like that's even possible. Okay. So all of this going on, talk about resources versus this idea of revealing and revealing myself to another person. And with enough practice, that becomes a connection with someone. So the revealing, what it's changed for me because I've practiced this is to share, for instance, I shared it with recently with a colleague of mine. I revealed something that I was concerned about, I felt insecure about around our relationship. Now, at first, it might seem risky because you never know what kind of response you're going to get. But if you're coming from revealing from a place of, hey, this is what was going on over here. And you're not doing it so they make you feel better. And you're not doing it to throw yourself under the bus. You're just doing it to put it out there. It's amazing the level of conversation, the depth of conversation that you can have with someone and where then you can go. So I use that also in my relationships with my clients. This doesn't mean that, you know, I jump in after every question and reveal something, but it's simply a way for me to be real with people in service to this connected, shared love that we have. And that has changed things. I also use it in my own life, my personal life. And sometimes it's really hard to do it because it's like, oh, am I really going to share that? Okay. Hey, Brian, I just want to reveal,
Yeah.
or I just want to tell you. And what I find time and time again, it's, yeah, I'm really glad you told me. Thank you. Or, yeah, Melissa, well, thanks for saying that because me too, or whatever. So that's been
Right.
so life affirming, healing, connecting. It's strengthened me as a coach and a person.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I can't help but think that, we could direct that to ourselves. Like, are we willing to reveal ourselves to ourselves, And sometimes we're just, in our busy, full lives, where we're skimming across the surface. And often what you've just done so beautifully today is sort of invite this deeper inquiry or openness. And that often, like that reveal, as you shared at the beginning, didn't come without some bumps and tears and, but also it came with liberation and freedom and love, so
It did.
yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I have loved this conversation. And, before we go, I just want to give you an opportunity. Is there anything else that's present for you today in this conversation that you'd like to share?
I really want to encourage people that it's okay to have the buffet of emotion. We're not built for just one, like we're humans, and all of it is, there's no good or bad in it. And to be able to do that, because at some point you'll get really tired from running from the things that you've avoided feeling, or the conversations you've avoided, or looking closer at the things that are covered in some level of shame. You can move in this direction that I've talked about. And even if it is slightly uncomfortable or really uncomfortable, it is the portal to something beyond what you can't even imagine.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Melissa. I so appreciate you and your sharing today. It's really meaningful for me too. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean a lot to us if you could take a moment to first subscribe and follow wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Hitting the follow button means you'll never miss a show. All you have to do is hit the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow. While you're there, if you like what you're hearing, we'd appreciate you taking a moment to give us a shout out and review. Most importantly, however, if you know anyone that would benefit from this episode, please pass it along. And finally, if you'd like to learn more about my work, Interverse Academy, or upcoming events, you can check out my website at barbarapatterson.com. You'll find some great resources, classes, and videos, and a lot more. Thank you again for being here. See you next time.